I never told my boyfriend that I make $50,000 a month as a venture capital fund director. He only knows me as an analyst assistant. When he invited me to his family's private members-only club in Boston, I knew exactly what I was walking into. I wanted to see how his old money parents would treat someone they thought was a nobody. But the moment I stepped through that door, I didn't cry. I didn't text back. Why I didn't throw my phone? I just sat there in the blue light of my monitor and stared at that little orange heart Zachary had left on my execution notice. My anger wasn't loud this time. It wasn't hot. It was clinical. It was quiet. I set my phone down, walked to my desk, and opened my laptop. I opened a single file, one I looked at every single month, a password-protected Excel sheet. The file name was simple, Family Support Ledger. My fingers moved quickly across the keys. Row 1, Richard and Elizabeth last name, Beacon Hill Mortgage. Monthly payment, $6,000. I clicked the auto payment link to my bank. Cancel. Row 2, Zachary, last name, Audi Q5 lease. Monthly payment, $800. Cancel. Row 3, Elizabeth last name, Amex bill. Monthly payment variable, usually around $3,000. Cancel. Row 4, Richard last name, Somerset Club dues. Quarterly payment, $4,000. Cancel. I looked at the clock on my screen. 1:20:3 a.m. In 12 minutes, I had financially severed myself from the family that had just text messaged me out of their lives. You have to understand, I wasn't just helping them. I was their silent, unacknowledged investor. This didn't start overnight. It started 5 years ago. I just made partner at Nova Capital my venture capital firm. I was flying high. I got a call from my father, Richard. He sounded broken. The family's old money law firm was failing. They were 3 months behind on the mortgage for the Beacon Hill house. The house I grew up in, they were going to lose it. He said, Elizabeth, my mother was a wreck. He said Zachary couldn't handle the stress. He asked me for help. Just until I get back on my feet, he said. So I did what I thought a good daughter should do. I took over the payments. I saved their home. I didn't ask for thanks. I just did it. I thought it was my duty. But getting back on his feet never seemed to happen. The mortgage payment just became expected. It didn't stop at the mortgage. A year later, it was Zachary. He needed a reliable car to get to his new job. I co-signed the lease. When he forgot the first 2 payments, I just sighed and added it to the auto-pay ledger. Then it was my mother, Elizabeth. Rachel, darling, the club dues. It's just so important for your father's networking. Then her Amex bill, which she used for family expenses, dinners. I was never invited to clothes I never saw. It's strange how cruelty works when it's normalized. No one ever asked me for $50,000. It was always 1,000 small cuts. Just this month. You're so successful, it's nothing to you. It's just what family does for each other. It becomes a trap. You get so used to the small hurts that you stop recognizing them as abuse. You just see it as the cost of admission, the price of being the responsible one. Until 1 p.m. on a Tuesday. My alarm went off at 7 a.m. I hadn't slept. I just watched the sunrise over the Boston harbor. At 8:01 a.m., the storm hit. My phone, which had been silent all night, exploded. A text from Elizabeth My Card was declined at the club. This is humiliating. Fix this now. A text from Richard posted to the family Facebook group. It is a sad day when a child forgets the sacrifices a parent made for them. Some people are just ungrateful. And then a text from Zachary, the one who had hearted the message. Hey, I think you're overreacting. Mom's just upset. You can't just cut us off like this. Why don't you just call them and make peace? I stared at his message. I wasn't even angry at him. I just felt pity. Zachary isn't evil. He's just weak. He's lived his entire life in a prison without bars built by our parents' expectations and their conditional love. He was experiencing what psychologists call learned helplessness. He was so terrified of their disapproval, so dependent on the life they and I provided, that he couldn't see the exit. His text wasn't about me. It wasn't about making peace. It was the sound of a man terrified that the system supporting him was about to collapse. He wasn't my brother in that moment. He was just another link in their invisible chain. I didn't reply. I didn't answer a single text. I didn't take a single call. I showered, got dressed in my best suit, a sharp, dark navy Armani, and went to work at my office on the 40th floor. I didn't go to my desk. I went straight to the legal department. Julia, one of the firm's top attorneys, and an old friend from college, looked up from her desk. Rachel, you look focused. What's wrong? I need you to draft a letter for me, I said, as a private matter, but I want it on Nova Capital letterhead. I sat down, pulled out my phone, and emailed her the password-protected Excel file, Family Support Ledger. She opened it. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the tabs. 5 years of payments. Rachel, she whispered, looking at the total at the bottom. $380,000. They call me the family problem, I said, my voice even. I call myself their chief investor, and I'm calling in the debt. Julia's expression hardened. She went from friend to lawyer in a split second. I'll have it ready in an hour. The letter she drafted was a work of art. It was cold, factual, and lethal. It was addressed to Mr. Richard and Mrs. Elizabeth last name. It outlined the full sum of $380,000 categorized as non-gift financial support provided by their daughter Rachel. It formally notified them that as of 1:02:03 a.m. that morning, all future support had been terminated. And it gave them exactly 30 days to contact Julia to initiate a formal repayment plan. If they failed to respond, we will immediately move to place a lien on the Beacon Hill property to secure our client's investment. I signed it, put it in a courier envelope, and had it sent directly to the house. I should explain. I'm Rachel. I'm 30 years old. I'm a managing director at Nova Capital, one of Boston's largest venture capital firms. I manage a portfolio worth over $100 million. My family knows I work in finance. They just assumed I was an assistant, a glorified analyst. It was easier that way. It was easier to let them think I was just doing okay, because in my family, if you're too successful, you become a threat, or in my case, a utility. They live in that perfect brick townhouse in Beacon Hill, clinging to an old money image that, as I now knew, was being funded entirely by new money. My money? I went back to my desk, the letter already on its way across town, and looked at my calendar. 10 a.m. pitch meeting, 12 p.m. budget review, 3 p.m. call with our partners in Berlin. I took a sip of my coffee. The storm was coming, but I was finally ready for it. The rest of the day was quiet, too quiet. I worked through my meetings with a sharp, detached focus. The pitch went well, the budget was balanced, but underneath it all I felt the hum of a different kind of calculation. The 30-day clock on that legal letter. I was in my office reviewing a term sheet for a new biotech investment when my private line rang. It was Julia. "That was fast," I said, picking up. "Did they already call you? Are they caving?" Rachel Julia's voice was different. The friendly professional tone was gone. It was replaced by something hard. "You need to come back to my office. Right now." "What's wrong?" "Just come. Don't call them. Don't text anyone. Just get here." She hung up. The drive from my office to hers was only 10 minutes, but my heart was pounding against my ribs. When I walked in, her paralegal showed me straight back. Julia was standing by her window holding a stack of papers. "What is it?" I asked. "When you prepare a property lien," she said, not turning around, "you have to pull the full title history. See what other debts are attached to the asset." She turned and dropped the papers on her desk. 6 months ago, Richard took out a second mortgage on the Beacon Hill house, a home equity line of credit for $100,000. I stared at her. What he never told me. He would have to. I would have had to sign. Julia looked at me, her eyes filled with a lawyer's pity, which is the worst kind. "That's just it, Rachel. You did." She pushed the top document across the desk. It was the loan application. And there at the bottom, next to Richard's looping, arrogant signature, was mine. Or rather, a clumsy, desperate attempt at mine. "He forged your signature," Julia said. "He stole $100,000 of equity from a property you were actively paying the mortgage on." I sat down. My legs suddenly felt weak. This wasn't just being ungrateful. This wasn't just insults behind my back. This was a crime. This was a felony. "It gets worse," Julia said, sitting across from me. "I know where the money went." She showed me the transfer records. The $100,000 wasn't spent on a vacation. It wasn't spent on a car. It was wired directly into the operating account for the last name law group. "His firm wasn't just failing," Rachel Julia said gently. "It was drowning. He was taking your monthly mortgage payments with one hand while simultaneously stealing your equity with the other just to keep his own sinking ship afloat." And just like that, everything clicked into place. The 1151 p.m. text message. It wasn't a random emotional outburst from my mother. It was a calculated decision. Richard knew the bank statements for the new loan would be coming. He knew I'd eventually find out. He had to get rid of me. He had to sever the relationship, declare me not family, so that when I discovered the theft, he could paint me as a bitter, vindictive outsider. He wasn't just cutting me off. He was cleaning up a crime scene. I looked at Julia. The shock was gone. The hurt was gone. All that was left was a cold, quiet clarity. "He didn't just make a mistake," I said. "He committed fraud." "Yes," Julia said. "Against you and against the bank. What do you want to do?" I thought about his Facebook post. Some people forget who raised them. I thought about Zachary's text. "Mom's just upset. Make peace." I thought about the years I spent making myself smaller, quieter, more useful, just hoping for a scrap of approval. I stood up and smoothed the front of my suit. "He's not just my father anymore, Julia. He's a liability to my asset. I want you to call the bank's fraud department. And I want you to call the State Bar Association. I want you to report him." Julia nodded slowly. "This will destroy his career. He'll be disbarred. He could face jail time." I know I said walking to the door, but as he's so fond of saying, it's just what family does for each other. It took 3 days for the other shoe to drop. I was working from home, my laptop open, on my marble kitchen island, finalizing a deal for a new AI startup. The city was quiet, just the distant sound of traffic. Then my intercom buzzed. Not a call to my phone, but a frantic buzz from the lobby. My doorman's voice came through. "Miss Rachel, a woman named Elizabeth is here. She seems very distressed." "Let her up," I said, and closed my laptop. I walked to the door and waited. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't angry. I felt nothing. It was the calm of a balance sheet, finally adding up to 0. The elevator chimed. I heard footsteps, fast and uneven, running down the hall. Then a desperate pounding on my door. I opened it. It was Elizabeth. But this wasn't the cold, polished matriarch from Beacon Hill. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were red and swollen mascara streaked down her cheeks. The expensive cashmere coat she wore was buttoned wrong. "Rachel," she gasped, pushing past me into the apartment. "Oh, Rachel, thank God. You have to help us." I closed the door slowly. "Help you with what, Elizabeth?" "The bank, they're foreclosing. They're taking the house, Richard." "Then your father. He made a mistake. A terrible mistake." She was sobbing, now grabbing my arm. Her perfectly manicured nails dug into my sleeve. He didn't know what he was doing. He was just confused. "You have to call them. You're in finance. You can fix this. Tell them you'll pay. Tell them it was a misunderstanding." I let her talk. I let her spin the entire story of his confusion and his mistake. I just stood there, watching her. When she finally paused to take a ragged breath, I spoke. My voice was quiet. "He didn't make a mistake, Elizabeth. He committed a crime." She froze. Her hand dropped from my arm. What are you talking about?" "The $100,000 loan. The one he took out 6 months ago. The one he forged my signature on to get." Her face went completely white. She knew. Of course she knew. "That wasn't a mistake," I continued, my voice still perfectly level. "That was fraud. And the mortgage payments I made after he stole from me, that was just covering his tracks." "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Rachel, please. It's your family. It's your home. You can't just let them take it. Do something." "Oh, I already have," I said. I walked over to my desk, picked up a single thick envelope and held it out to her. She looked at it confused. What is this?" "That," I said, "is the official notice of foreclosure. The bank isn't taking the house, Elizabeth." She ripped open the envelope, her hands shaking as she pulled out the legal documents. Her eyes scanned the first page. I watched her face as she read the name of the new primary creditor, the entity that had bought the debt from the bank. "I am," I said. "I'm taking the house." She looked up, her eyes wide, with a horror that was almost satisfying. "I've been paying for it for 5 years. I might as well own it. You and Richard have 30 days to vacate the property. My property—" "No," she breathed. "No, you can't. You wouldn't." "You cut me out," I said, walking to the door and opening it. "You texted me at 11:51 at night to tell me I wasn't family. You were right. I'm not. I'm just your creditor." She stood there frozen, clutching the papers. "Goodbye, Elizabeth." She stumbled out into the hallway, still whispering no, and I closed the door, shutting out the sound. I leaned against the wood, listening to her footsteps fade away. I rubbed my eyes, not trying to summon regret, but just clarity. This wasn't revenge. It was accounting. 6 months passed. The legal storm had come and gone. The battles were, in the end, quiet and decisive. Once Julia presented the state bar with the irrefutable evidence of forgery, Richard's career evaporated. He was disbarred within weeks. He pled guilty to felony fraud to avoid a trial. The judge, citing his age and lack of prior offenses, sentenced him to 3 years of probation and full financial restitution. The Beacon Hill house, the one I had saved, was sold. The proceeds were wired to my account, every cent, the $380,000 from my ledger and the $100,000 he had stolen. Elizabeth I had moved into a small rental apartment across the river. She'd taken a job as a receptionist at a dental office. Zachary. Well, Zachary had to get 2 jobs to cover his own car payments and rent, now that my name was no longer his safety net. He texted me only once about a month ago. A single bitter line, "I hope you're happy." I never replied. This morning I sat at my desk looking out over the Boston Harbor. I opened my laptop. I opened that password-protected file, family support ledger, one last time. I scrolled through the years of payments, the red numbers, the total at the bottom that quantified 5 years of my misplaced loyalty. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I right-clicked the file. I dragged it to the trash icon. I clicked empty. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel sadness. I just felt balanced. The ledger was clear. The debt was paid. I opened a new blank document. I typed a title, the Nova Fund for Legal Ethics. I started drafting the charter, a new scholarship fund for law students from low-income backgrounds, the ones who had to fight just to get in the door, the ones who understood that ethics are not a luxury, but a foundation. I finally understood. In life, there are 2 kinds of justice. There's the justice of the storm, the kind that tears things down. The payback, the retribution. It's loud and it's necessary, and it's what I had to do. It's the justice of an eye for an eye. But then there's a quieter, more powerful kind. The justice of the sower. It doesn't focus on punishing the past. It focuses on building a better future. It understands that the ultimate victory isn't just about destroying what hurt you. It's about using the rubble to build something new, something that can't be broken. My father's legacy was one of failure and fraud. By creating this fund, I wasn't erasing it. I was redeeming it. I was taking the ashes of what he had burned down and using them as fertilizer to grow something better. That, I realized, is the ultimate power flip. Not just walking away from a toxic past, but taking its power and using it to fund your future. What about you? Have you ever had to turn your deepest pain into your greatest purpose? Let me know your story in the comments. I'd really love to read it.